I am far too late in making this video. A lot of what I'm going to say has been said before, and honestly, at this point it feels like I'm screaming into a void. I'm not even fully sure why I'm making this video. The tiny remaining fragment of optimism within me hopes that I will be heard and maybe change some people's minds. The rest of me just wants to rant until I get everything out of my system. You've seen the title. I don't need to give much introduction to the situation. If you know about Nintendo, you know what's going on. Let me instead introduce myself and why I care about this. I'm a huge Nintendo fan. My first ever console was a DS Lite. I've been hooked on Nintendo ever since I first played New Super Mario Bros. I've never bought any other consoles. Even in the Wii U era, I was first in line to get the latest games. I get this is maybe overdramatic for an intro, maybe a bit too personal, but I need you to understand how loyal of a customer I am and have been for this company. I've been a white knight for Nintendo for a long time, a Nintendrone as some would call me. In fact, I will still be defending them a little bit in this video. The reason why I defend them is because they deliver a level of quality so consistently that no other game studio has ever matched. I want you to know all this so you understand how serious I am when I say, I want the Switch 2 to fail. It feels really harsh to say that. I imagine a lot of you think it's not harsh enough, but for me it feels almost cruel. And yet, I don't think there's an alternative. The Switch has been a golden era for Nintendo and its fans, but there were signs of something changing in the background. First, there were the limited time offers. Mario 3D All-Stars, Super Mario Bros. 35, games that stopped being sold for artificial scarcity, preying on FOMO to get more sales, or in the case of Mario Bros. 35, shutting down free games for absolutely no reason. Then there was the expansion pack. Nintendo Switch Online was pretty rough around the edges, especially now that you needed to pay for it, but then it got an expansion pack for more money with barely enough to make it worthwhile. Honestly, still to this day, it is barely worth it. They've not even added any more free DLCs since the launch roster. Who cares about Splatoon 2's DLC at this point? There's a lot more that they did, like shutting down the 3DS and Wii U eShops, but at the end of the day, they weren't deal breakers. At least not for me. I'm not going to defend all these choices and say they were all great, but it was easy to overlook. Unfortunately, it was not something that should have been overlooked. These were signs of a shift in focus. This was the beginning of Nintendo putting profits over the best interests of their customers. Now, I'm not a complete fool. I know that Nintendo is a company, and companies aren't our friends. At the end of the day, they exist to make money. The issue I have is that before, they were able to reach a balance, at least for the most part, where it felt like they respected the customer. I've seen a lot of people disagree with this idea, and tell me that I've been stupid, and I'm only now smart enough to see that Nintendo has always been a horrible company. That is not true. Nintendo has not always been as bad as they are right now, and that's worse. Because we know that they can be better than this. Nintendo knows better. At least with a company like EA, there was never any hope they would improve. But for Nintendo to be so transparently greedy, that hurts, to be honest. It hurts. I've seen people who are bigger shills than I am trying to defend this. If this video gets any attention, I'm sure I'll get people in the comments calling me poor or saying not to buy it if I don't like it. As obnoxious as these people are, I kinda get it. Ignoring the issues, the Switch 2 is an amazing console. It's got great features and a knockout lineup of launch titles. A perfect launch, except for all the problems. And if money isn't an issue for you, it can be easy to ignore those problems and overlook the big picture. If I could take just a quick moment to get the last bit of shilling out of my system, I will say that the storm of misinformation surrounding this console doesn't make it any easier to see the main issue. Granted, a lot of this is caused by Nintendo doing an abysmal job of explaining the core features of their new console, but there's still a lot of lying going on. You don't need to make up problems. There are many genuine issues. Stop making the Nintendrone's jobs easier. If you'll allow me, let me clear up a few things before I get to the main issue. To start, no, not every game is a game key card. Only third-party games are game key cards, and even then, it's not all of them. This is not me defending the concept of game key cards. I have issues with them as well, but too many people are saying that the Switch 2 killed off physical games. This isn't true. I've also seen people saying that the Joy-Con drift will be just as bad as Switch 1. There's no proof of this. People noticed Nintendo isn't using a joystick design that is allegedly immune to drift and have speculated a crisis into existence. Could it be true? Maybe. We won't know until it's off the shelves. I'm not even saying it won't be an issue. I'm just seeing a lot of people acting like this is a confirmed fact. It is truly exhausting to see people straight up invent problems when there is something much worse that deserves the attention. The price. Of course it's the price. Everyone and their grandmother have talked about the price. Like I said before, the brilliant rebuttals I've heard have boiled down to stop being poor. It's a transparently stupid and ignorant thing to say, but as I've continually implied, there's something it completely overlooks. I know I'm probably going to be ignored by the type of people who would say something like this, but let me try and break it down anyways. The issue isn't even necessarily the price of the console itself. Consoles have always been pretty expensive. You know going in that you're going to need to set aside a big chunk of change. The issue is the games. I live in Canada, and in Canada, Mario Kart World will cost $110. Let me repeat. $110. That is a week's worth of grocery money right there. That might make the issue clear to most of you at this point, but to hammer it home, let me ask you a question. What happens if this price becomes the standard for all games? The message this sends to Nintendo if the Switch 2 succeeds is that this is reasonable. This is what they can get away with charging. Then the inevitable DLC will drop, and it will cost you $30 to $40, maybe even $50, bringing the cost of the whole package up to about $150. Just a handful of games will be worth as much as your rent, and other companies will follow suit. You know they will once they see what they can get away with, and then that will be the standard. Over $100 for a single game. No DLC, no expansions, no nothing. Base game. $110. And from there, they go even higher. I imagine there will still be people who don't care, who will laugh and call people like me broke, but that just shows their complete lack of empathy. This is not an attempt at a flex. I'm not trying to cope and seethe. I can afford these games. I'm not upset about this because I can't afford it. I'm upset because I care about other people. I love Nintendo games, and I want other people to be able to experience them too. I don't want people to get pushed out of a hobby they love because they don't want to have to take out a mortgage just to afford more than one game. Nintendo makes family-focused games. How the hell is a family supposed to afford this? How do you, in times like these, afford to raise kids, let alone buy them $110 games? The price shows such a shocking ignorance of the state of the world. To think that this would be affordable, that people would be willing to pay this much. On the other hand, maybe I'm wrong. Pre-orders are through the roof despite everything. But there's no way this can be sustainable, right? There's no way people can keep affording this. Once we are past $100 for a single game, I don't care if it's the best game ever made. I'm not buying that. It's not reasonable. None of this is reasonable. But it seems like none of that matters. People are eating this up. I can only wait and see what the fallout will be. Nothing to do but sit around and find out if gaming as a hobby will slowly die. Just to watch as people are pushed away as the prices climb higher and higher, all because success isn't enough for these companies. Even doubling or tripling last year's earnings isn't enough. They need to have their profits grow exponentially every single year. Do not buy a Switch 2. I know this begging is pointless, but I just want to pretend for a moment like someone out there can hear me. Don't buy a Switch 2. At least not on launch day. I'm not going to shame anyone who buys one. Call me a hypocrite, but I'll probably be buying one a month or so after launch. At that point, what difference will it make? If the sales are as good as the forecasts are showing, it will be a drop in the ocean. I had just hoped a backlash would make Nintendo reconsider, but I can't see that happening now. Look, I get people are going to be calling me overdramatic. I know this is such a first world problem. I know at the end of the day, none of this matters, but it just feels so hopeless. This is all I can think to do. Just try and push a few more people away, to hope maybe there's a chance things will change. But at this point, I think Nintendo will be rewarded for this blatant greed. No one will stop this. things will get worse. I'm sorry this video is such a bummer. I really wish I could bring myself to be more positive, but at this point, I just can't. I'm tired. I'm tired of the game industry declining with every passing day. I'm tired of the greed. I'm tired of Nintendo just ignoring us. Tired of feeling like my voice means nothing. I'm tired that I can't enjoy some cool new games. I'm just tired. If you feel like I do, or if you want to help, just do whatever small bit you can. I'll say it one more time. Don't buy the Switch 2. Maybe if we spread the word, things will change. Maybe nothing will happen, but we know for certain nothing will happen if we don't try. Just do what you can to get the world you want to see. That's all any of us can do. For now, I guess we just sit and wait to see what comes next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.